Hello.
Hey, yeah, so your comments were really misguided. Your ego just has taken hold of a deadness, a flatness. It's not to do with non-duality.
No.
No, you've just found a way to sign out of reality. This idea of awareness. Who is it that knows that idea of awareness? In your experience, not in an idea.
In my experience, it is known by itself, I guess.
But to say if we call it awareness, I don't really like the word awareness because there's so much um, this teaching of someone being aware of awareness. But how could awareness be aware of itself? That's a thought. Awareness, if it's really revealed itself, awareness wouldn't be able to be aware of itself or recognize itself. That would require a brain and thoughts. It just is. In every second it's being wiped clean, so it wouldn't remember that. It wouldn't remember recognizing itself. It's really beautiful that it's been seen by you, but it is by you that's seen it. It can be relaxing, but it can also make you really dead. I'm not talking about a flatness or a deadness. I'm talking about something that's radically alive. So do you have a sense of presence now?
A sense of presence.
Yeah,
Yeah,
a sense
I
of
think
being.
so.
So there's this sense of being. And have you ever noticed that the sense of being is love? In its initial form, in the first manifestation of being, it's love. I don't know if you've ever had that experience before or sensed that.
I had this. I have experienced something like love, maybe. Yeah. I would not call it love. It was like it can't really be described, I think.
Yeah. So awareness and consciousness teachings are really beautiful, but they tend to be quite dead. And it's not meant to be a dead thing. This reality, what's happening, has two sides to it. It's totally empty. It's totally nothing that can be described. And then when it manifests and creates that nothingness, that emptiness, that total void, when it creates, it creates this sense of knowing itself, so consciousness, and it also creates a sense of existence, or there is a sense of existence in that consciousness. And all of it like comes in. Sometimes teachers split it off and they say your true self is the consciousness, but actually it's beyond that. Your true self is a total mystery. It's not even consciousness. But when it comes into existence, it goes into consciousness and a sense of existence. And you can't separate them out really. And this is the love side. You've kind of recognized this consciousness, but it's you that's recognized it in a dead kind of way. There's also in that consciousness this sense of being, this aliveness, this awakeness. That's the other side of life, because you can't really separate it out. Sometimes in waking up experiences, everything gets taken away, and then there's just awakeness, but awakeness of nothing. And that's the backside of life. But then also the other side of life is this manifestation and this beingness and this existence and this aliveness. And really, one's not more real than the other. It's simultaneously appearing. You can't separate it out. That's why it's called non-duality. What we can say is God, the Creator, isn't found in this manifestation. It's totally mysterious, yet it's everything. But often in teaching these teachings, the teachers, including myself, split it up. And now your identity's got identified with this kind of blank consciousness or awareness, and that nothing matters. To consciousness. And in one way, nothing does matter to life, because life doesn't have a brain. Life doesn't function through the sensory perceptions of the human. But it's looking through a human form where things do matter. So when you drop a hammer on your foot, it does matter. It hurts. If somebody knocks down your house and you walk home, it does matter. You walk home and your house has been bulldozed, it does matter. So it's being experienced through an instrument which is based on moving towards pleasure and avoiding pain. Suffering in that instrument comes from seeking and believing that freedom is found in pleasure and avoiding pain. These instruments naturally move towards pleasure. So to say to yourself it doesn't matter is a total lie on the personal sense. To the person, there is a gentle movement towards pleasure. But the suffering side comes when there's identification with being someone and the belief that happiness, which is pleasure, comes from maintaining and always having pleasure. So yeah, you've misunderstood the teachings. Your mind is just doing it as a way to be dead and to avoid itself. So what I'd recommend for that separate self that feels like it exists in your body, although there isn't really a separate self, is to begin to explore the bodily sensations. Because all the senses are how life is experiencing itself. So at the moment you've had this intellectual awakening and you're most probably cut off and in your head. And the fact that you can't feel that body has a natural impulse towards pleasure and you think nothing matters means it's totally intellectual and you're interpreting it from the brain. So now how does your back against the seat feel? How does your stomach feel? How does your big toe feel? How does your nose feel? It's a totally different way of being. When the separate self falls away, it's really not living through a story in time. And obviously what you wrote was a story in time. It's this intimacy with everything that's happening, every sense. And there isn't actually a separation between that which is sensed and the world. The sensing and the sensed. So there isn't a difference between the sensing and that which is and that which it senses, which is the world.
It's the same.
Yeah. So the reason that your mind is feeling depressed is because your mind is interpreting non-duality and trying to live non-duality. So you feel you exist and you are someone that you have control over your body, you need to to put the attention in the body, in the senses, rather than in the intellect.
Yeah, I try to also.
But nothing you think is true, ever. What's true is what's happening. And it's so incredibly important what's happening, but it doesn't have meaning for a person. It's depressing when it's meaningful for you. And now what you've done is you've put the meaning into the negative. It doesn't have any meaning. There's no meaning to this and to that. And that doesn't mean anything. It's not that there's meaning or no meaning. And the reason that you don't know what to do with yourself is because of lack of connection with the body. The body knows what it wants.
So, is there meaning? I didn't get it.
Well, what do you think?
Sorry.
Is there meaning?
I still think there is no meaning.
That's not true. There is not meaning nor not meaning. Neither is true.
Oh yeah.
Not meaning is just the opposite to meaning. It's just a story that your mind uses to depress you.
Yeah.
Because you used to believe in meaning and now it's having a tantrum and saying there is no meaning. The reason teachers say there is no meaning is because they're fighting the assumption that there is meaning. But it doesn't actually mean that there is no meaning. Both of those, the meaning and the no meaning, mean nothing. They're words and thoughts that appear now.
That's right. Yeah, I see.
But the mind has a tantrum, so it identifies there's no meaning. It's pointless life. There's nothing I can do. This is the dangerous side of non-duality. It is often what the mind does. But the body knows what to do. When the body wants to swim because it's too hot, it knows. When the body wants to take a walk, it knows. And then there's the mind. But what's my point? Where's it going to get me? What am I going to get from this? How am I going to make money from this? How is everyone going to see how wonderful I am from this? When the body wants to go to the toilet, it knows. When it wants to drink, it knows. And the reason why people feel so lost is because they're locked in a mental reality. And as soon as that mental reality begins to crumble, then the attention will naturally go more into the body, and there is just a natural flow to life. And I think that many people's lives will change a lot, because I think many people's lives is based on a very egotistical way.
And what's the difference between being in the body and being awakened?
Awakened is that there is no body in the body anymore. There is simply life happening, but there's no divide between the senses and the sensed. But the instrument which is being looked through won't be contained to the head area anymore. People that are identified tend to be contained to the head area.
Mm-hmm.
The
So does it require...
The senses come back to life again. Like everything comes back to life again. But it's not for anyone anymore.
So does it require some form of samadhi to lose the sense of I, of the head area?
I don't really have association with those words. I mean, I hear them obviously a lot because I'm in non-duality, but I don't really... I mean, so many people mean different things by that, and
it's a really kind of... With samadhi, I mean being very merged with the object, deep so deep in concentration that you forget everything?
I don't know. I mean, that's a very short explanation of what samadhi is. I don't want to comment on that. But I can tell you it is a total merging with all things. It's not really anything to do with the consciousness teachings, although it's a really beautiful way to try and talk about the subject. But it is a merging back into all things. And one side of life is totally empty, and then the other side of life is totally full. It's both.
May I ask you how your awakening happened?
Sure. I speak about it a lot actually, but I think I spoke about it recently on Ustream. I was basically sitting in a cafe, listening to music and eating my breakfast, and I began to think how beautiful the waitress was. And there'd been many awakenings and many intellectual understandings, and at this time there was nothing spiritual happening or any thoughts, but I just began to think she was really beautiful. And then I looked at the rest of the cafe and I began to think how beautiful the whole cafe was, and I was surprised I hadn't noticed how beautiful it was. And then I felt like my sense of self began to go out through my eyes. This is really a bizarre bit, but I'd always felt locked behind my head or locked inside my body, and it felt like my sense of self began to go out forwards, and it kept going further and further out until my sense of self disappeared into everything. And there was no difference between that beingness, that essence which had always been there, and everything. And everything wasn't happening for anything anymore. There wasn't somebody which was having that experience anymore. It was all a happening, and it was all same. It was all that God. It was all that beingness that had always been there. No matter how old the body was, whether it was angry or happy or sad, that kind of awakeness and beingness that's merged together, of feeling like something is looking from inside and something's experiencing from inside, and it also feels awake, like being, and then it kind of merged into everything. So that had happened many times before, but not to the extent that it happened like that. Like that one, like it was just so dramatic and big and profound, and it was like love. Like there was one side of it that was totally empty and still and vast, and then the other side was totally in love with itself.
And it still remained like this?
Yeah.
Remains?
Yeah. Yeah. Even if difficult emotions arise, or anger arises, or jealousy arises, or what other emotions are there? Whatever can arise in Lisa, she's no saint, the form of Lisa and her behaviours, or you could say that she's a total and utter saint, dependent on how you look at it and how you categorise things. Yeah, so even in all the extremities of emotions, there was a profound shift and change that happened in Lisa. So she really changed, and she does still carry on to seem to be changing. I mean, like it seems to be integrating in the body more.
have you done specific practices before this happening?
I did lots of different things. Lots of different things. But you're not going to get that nice answer that you're looking for of like, you've got to sit in meditation for 20 hours or 10,000 hours, I think they say it is. I did lots of different things. Listening to teachers, Buddhism, meditation, intellectual understanding. But everybody's path is unique to that particular body-mind mechanism. You can't copy somebody else's and say, this is the way.
What was the decisive factor, you would say, that evoked that happening?
I'll tell you that if you tell me what the decisive factor is for you sitting here asking me this question.
The decisive factor.
See how impossible that question is? If you can tell me the decisive factor as to why you're asking me and sitting asking me and speaking to me on Ustream, then I will answer. But it's got to be tit for tat. You've got to be at least able to answer the question if you're going to ask me that one.
Yeah, maybe I just want to, I hope to get some information that also can be transformed in practice that helps to awaken, you know.
But this means that you're deeply misunderstanding what awakening is.
Why?
Because you think that awakening is about you. But feel these emotions as I say it. Feel your heart break and hurt when I say that. And the reason I tell you to feel it is because I'll wrap it up at the end, but feel what happens in your body when I say these things. What happened in your body when I said that?
To be honest, I'm always, how do you say, tensioned.
Yeah.
Do you say tension?
Yeah,
tensioned,
yeah.
When it comes to talk with people, you know.
Oh, yeah.
I have kind of fear of social phobia, something like that. So I mostly feel tensions.
Tension. And when I said that particularly, did you have a particular response?
Particular response.
Like, was there more tension or more sadness or anything?
Yeah, more tension.
Okay, more tension. So just be aware of, so basically, it's not you that wakes up.
I suppose so.
And you can ask for practice, and I can give you practices that will relax you, but I can't give you a practice that's going to get you to liberation, because there's never been a you there, it's been a myth. And that's what's been making it seem like there's somebody inside the body that's got to get somewhere. But I can give you practices which are going to help you relax and integrate, because as soon as the sense of self separated, your whole life was based on a lie, so you get into neurotic patterns and behaviors. So I can tell you things to do to relax things, and the best thing that you can do as a person when you feel separate, not to awaken, but just to relax the person, is to explore feelings. This is so beneficial to relaxing you, understanding how things are happening. We're way too much in the head in our society. So if you put your attention onto your feelings, so right now, where do you feel the tension? Often people don't even know where they're feeling tension. Do you have a specific place?
At the moment, in the feet, somehow, and in the stomach.
And in the stomach. So, just if you shut your eyes now, Just move
Yes.
your attention down to your feet or your stomach area. Just move the attention and see if there's thoughts that are arising at the same time, or any particular thoughts that are arising.
No thoughts yet.
No thoughts. So describe what that tension feels like, if you can.
It's like burning.
Yeah? And would you say you would rather not have it? You don't want to have it?
If I go deep inside the feeling, it doesn't feel like pain anymore.
Yeah. It's amazing how they shift and change. Sometimes you might notice that the feeling speaks. So with social situations, you might realise that thoughts come up. I'm just going to give you an example of what thoughts might come up. Like, I don't want to be in this situation. I don't want them to see me. I don't like them. They don't like me. Whatever thoughts. And just see that those thoughts arise from that feeling or with that feeling. And just recognise them. And in the recognition of them, they will begin to change. Nothing stays the same when they come into consciousness. But this isn't about you getting to enlightenment. The enlightenment will happen when it happens. And so at the moment, you just look at it like an exploration of what it is to be alive. And forget about the idea of enlightenment. That will come when it comes. Because the idea of enlightenment, basically when I hear people telling me they want to get enlightened or they want a path to enlightenment, what they're telling me is, I don't want to currently be alive and experience this experience. I want a different experience.
Yes.
And that's what's got to be explored. You see, that will just perpetuate itself. You'll keep trying to avoid your experience and you won't get anywhere. Like it will just add on and add on and add up. So forget about this dream, this daydream of paradise. That's what the films taught us. That's what Hollywood taught us. That's what our parents taught us. That's what education taught us. That one day you're going to get to a paradise. Just forget about getting to the paradise and explore what's currently happening, what it is to be alive, because this is an amazing phenomenon, that this is happening. And there's so many sensations. So when you're feeling deep contraction and suffering in your tummy, if you move your attention to your fingertips, it's a totally different world. And then also the assumption that you end at the edge of your skin. But often, because the body and the mind are aware of habit, the habit wants to keep going back to seeking. So putting up this image of a paradise and trying to pedal to get to a paradise. Whether it be enlightenment, money, lover. And every time that arises, you can just explore it back. You can go, oh, there goes the train, and just take it backwards and see that when you're imagining paradise, when you're imagining getting to enlightenment, it's coming from a deep sense of lack and fear. Because in this moment, you feel lack and fear. And that's the place to explore. That's where the juice is. What a ridiculous idea that you're imperfect, that there's something wrong with you, that there's something to be afraid of here. So this is where you can rest your attention in the fear, and then who is it that rests their attention in the fear? And who is it that knows the person that's resting their attention in the fear?
This whole question is hard to feel any answer.
Yeah, you're not meant to.
I think.
Yeah. You're not really meant to get to an answer because it can't be found in this reality. It's just basically what it does is it implodes the mind, because the mind is so sumptuous in saying that something's experiencing this reality. But actually, there isn't a location which is experiencing. There is only simply experiencing. So the fact that you feel you don't get somewhere is just the mind wanting to put you down. It's beautiful that you don't get somewhere.
This whole question brings also tension.
Yeah? So let's explore that tension again. So where do you feel the tension now?
In the stomach, mainly.
Can you feel any thoughts that are coming from it or appearing with it?
Not right now.
Could you say that you feel afraid? Would that be an accurate thing to say? I'm afraid? Tension is fear? Or is that not fitting?
Maybe. Yeah, fear is there. Fear is there.
Yeah? So there is fear. The reason the fear comes, and why a lot of people in our society feel fear, is because when the separation happens, so when you were really young and the separation happened, you separated and felt like you were a separate person in relationship with the world, you felt afraid of that world that you were suddenly in relationship with. Prior to the separation, you weren't afraid of yourself because it's all yourself. But then the separation happens and you feel like the world does things to you. So in some way your mind has associated social situations and other people as something, as an object that does things to you, that hurts you, that can hurt you. So maybe you feel vulnerability in there as well. But I'm putting words in your mouth. I mean, please argue with me.
Yeah, vulnerability is there. I feel very vulnerable.
Yeah. So this is something that needs to get explored. This vulnerability. Because at a young age, you've obviously associated other people as danger. You might have picked it up from your parents, or it might have just genetically been there. And even though I don't want you to ignore the vulnerability, everything that you feel vulnerable to is actually yourself. Everywhere you look, everything you've ever done is yourself as beingness, as aliveness. So you've never actually been vulnerable. But while you feel separate, there's got to be an acknowledgement of that vulnerability. I feel vulnerable. And it's really okay to be honest with people that you feel that. It's so much stronger than trying to deny it and pretend you don't and pretend that you do fit in. It's so beautiful when someone can say, I feel vulnerable now. If you don't acknowledge it more, what it does is it turns into rejection and hate of others. You reject them, you push them away, you put up barriers. And really, it's just a sweet, sweet vulnerability. Like a child in the playground the first time it got sent to school. It doesn't know what to do with itself. And that's really okay. Just to feel the richness of all those emotions and feelings. This is where the juice is, not in the I am consciousness or awareness which watches them, although that's got its beauty and it's got its point where that's really relevant. This is so beautiful. this rich feeling. It's so alive. I know the mind or the person could be like, I don't want to feel anything negative. No, that's a lie. Because just behind all those feelings and all that discomfort is this boundless love supporting it all. So when you're exploring it, you can sometimes flick up images of past times when you felt vulnerable like that. You can listen to it sometimes as to what it's got to say. And then the whole time see that that one that's exploring is also appearing and experiencing. So it can't be the experiencer, that one that's having the exploration. But while it feels like it can control, that's a beautiful thing to do. But it's also appearing in experiencing. That one that's exploring isn't the experiencer. There's something that's experiencing itself that's endless, that's not limited to anything, not limited to the movement of attention, to the appearance of choices, to sounds, to sight, to smells, not limited to anything, and is everything. It's non-located, and yet everywhere is shining and reflecting it. But don't do any of this with the idea that you're going to get somewhere. That idea is a futile and hopeless idea that's based in lack and fear. If it comes up, those thoughts, just follow them back to your lack and fear. When you feel complete, you won't be having any thoughts about getting to the future or getting enlightened. You won't care, because there will just be completion.
And when comes the who question?
Whenever you want to ask it, whenever it appears.
Okay.
You can listen to this back as well. I record these and put them on YouTube. It's like an investigation. What is happening here? What is this? We lose ourselves by always looking at the destination rather than the actual journey. Well, thank you. It was very nice speaking with you. You're more than welcome to call in another time. I'll be happy to speak with you again.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks, Lisa. Bye.